For those of you who are not from Tamil country, the Silappatikaram means tail of the anklet. It can be considered a love story that doesn't have a happy ending. It can also be considered a sweep of history, society, and culture. For the Tamils, the Silappatikaram is as revered and epic as the Iliad is to the Greeks. Now, our featured guest today is historian Meenakshi Devaraj. Welcome, Meenakshi.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, all.
So, Meenakshi is a historian with a specialist in inscriptions. When she was doing her studies, she read about the significance of columns in ancient Tamil society. Now, columns are the white rice flower drawings, floor patterns. For those of you from North India, the simplest way is Rangoli. And of course, then Meenakshi went on to study columns, and that's what connected me to her, because I watched her stunning columns during Navratri last year. So today we are going to talk about one character in the Silappatikaram, the celebrated dancer Madhavi. The story has three main characters: Kovalan, a merchant; Kannagi, his pious wife; and Madhavi, this dazzling dancer. Our discussion will focus on who Madhavi was, her background, her training, and let's also discuss why she's not as celebrated and as admired by the Tamils as she deserves to be. So, Meenakshi, I want to begin. Who was Madhavi? How did she encounter dance?
Madhavi, according to Silappatikaram, she was born in Pugar, the capital city of the early Cholas, in a family of dancers. And her ancestry basically traces back to that of Apsara Urvashi, who's very much known for her beauty and dance. So obviously, having born in a family of dancers, she would have definitely aspired to become, a very good dancer. So she starts her dance training at the age of 5. And those days when a person had to learn dance, it was not, narrowed down to dancing alone. That a dancer had to have a broad knowledge. So the training included dance, vocal, and the dancer had to have a very good knowledge of the music instruments. Apart from all this, a dancer had to have a very good command over the language. So Madhavi's, team of teachers had an expert. She had an expert team of teachers for dance, music, and musical instruments like yar, kural, tannumai, which is the current mirdangam, and the Tamil poet to teach her Tamil very well.
So I just want to interrupt here, Meenakshi. The yar can be equated to the sound of a harp.
Yes.
That's like the closest that we have. So it's an instrument that has since gone into disuse. Beautiful sound, but just for those of you who may want to know what is the yar, that's what we say in Tamil. So can you imagine that she had all these? So she had a teacher for yar. She had a teacher for the scriptures or literature. She had to train her voice, and she had to have, of course, the dance. So she had this, I would say, like a team, right?
Yes.
Very much like athletes today have a team of people to groom them. Yeah. So that's interesting. So in a sense, Meenakshi, she had what we call in a sense a multi-pronged learning. And we use the word interdisciplinary today, but she had to know musical instruments because she had to know mridangam as well because of the rhythm beats. So it's something for dancers in the audience to know that this is what is called cross training. She had to know all these various aspects that actually braids into the dance practice. Yeah, please continue.
And each of these people, it was not just trainers alone. These trainers had to have specific qualifications. So each of the qualifications for each of these tutors have been listed down in Silapadigaram, and Madhavi gets trained for about 7 years on all these aspects. And as you said, yes, it is an interdisciplinary training.
7 years. That's how long all of us also take. We should normally take. When we start dance class at age 5 or 6, it should take 7 years. Times now have changed, and so it's express highway. But let's move on. You mentioned the city of Puhar. It was a great famed city on the coast. It was a Chola. It was a city where the Chola kings ruled. In fact, Silapatikaram has a sweep that includes the Chola kingdom, the Pandya kingdom, and the Chera kingdom. Yeah, so it really is quite a magnificent story. So when you tell us about all this training, okay, she finishes in 7 years, her training is done, okay? And then we have the performance. Okay, so even before she has the performance, there is a beautiful description of the Natya Mandapa, right? The hall itself where she dances for the Chola king. Please tell us about that. What does the Silapadikaram say about it?
Today you have, as you said, you have the Arangetram, right? So even those days, the Arangetram concept was there, the debut, performance concept was there. It was called as a Talai Arangam or a Munnarangam, meaning the first stage. So Madhavi, after her 7 years of training, she also gets ready to perform at her Talai Arangam. And apart from this performance, the usual debut performance which is being given, there is something called as Talekol, which is very, very important for her dancer. So her dancer had to, perform in front of the Chola king. If the Chola king is impressed by the performance, by her expertise in dancing and other areas, he would award her with the Talekol. And from that point of time, the dancer was privileged to attach the title of Talekoli to her name. To my surprise, this title of Talekoli, which is mentioned in Silapadigaram, I saw it in an inscription which belongs to the 13th century in Tiruvattriyur, which is in North Chennai. It's something which was practiced in the Chola times. And you come to Tondaimandalam, and here in North Chennai, you have an inscription which calls a temple dancer as Uravikna Talekoli. So that custom has been there for so many years. So coming back to this Talekol is actually an award which is very, very prestigious. So when a Chola king goes for a battle and he defeats his enemy, they used to get the central stick of the Venkotra Kodai, which is the royal umbrella of the defeated king. They used to bring it back home, and they used to decorate it very well with gold and all costly gems. And they used to pray this umbrella as, Indra's son Jayanta, who is actually responsible for keeping the swaram and talam in harmony. So this was, a musical symbol, as well as a prestigious symbol for a king, because it actually denotes his victory. And this particular Talekol, which was so dear and which talks about the valor of the king, was given to a outstanding dancer. So you should imagine, what high social status a dancer enjoyed at that particular period. So
Can
definitely,
I also make just one interruption? I just wanted to tell the viewers. So Talekol is more like a baton, right? That's I don't want to call it a stick. And there's an interesting backstory. She talked about Indra's son Jayanta. So I believe once in the heavens, Indra was always had a roving eye for all the beautiful women. So his son Jayanta is supposed to have misbehaved with one of the celestial apsaras, Urvashi. So the sage Agastya is supposed to have got very, very upset and cursed him to be born on earth as a bamboo, literally as a bamboo. And Urvashi was also banished to the earth. So the bamboo becomes a symbol of Jayanta. It also becomes a symbol of somebody who keeps talam, as you say, rhythm. So it's really interesting how war, which is very masculine, and the arts, which is essentially feminine, come together in that talekol. So it's both a symbol of victory and also of high achievement. Yeah,
True,
victory.
true, true.
So I just wanted to make that comparison. Yeah. So continue, please.
Okay. So Madhavi also definitely aspires to get this Talekol award, and she's all ready for it. And when the performance is done to get this Talekol award, usually this Talekol is given bath in holy waters, decorated with garland, and it's given to the royal elephant. Then the royal elephant brings it in procession to the stadium where the dance happens. And when the procession happens, the king and his Aimperum Kuru, who are the chief dignitaries in his courtyard, all go along the royal elephants till the stadium. And then it is handed over to a poet. The poet places it in the stadium. So this is the process for the Talekol. And coming back to your question on the auditorium, yes, there are so much of informations about the auditorium. It's not like that you already have a fixed auditorium and anyone can go and dance. It's not like that. To construct a stage itself, you have rules, and the land has to be chosen depending upon the sand there. After that, and you have specific regulations on what has to be the breadth of the stage, what needs to be the length of the stage, and to what height the stage has to be raised from the ground, and what should be the difference of the stage base to the ceiling, and what kind of what kind of backdrops are to be used. There were around 3 kinds of backdrops. So what all backdrops are to be used, and what kind of paintings need to appear on the ceilings. Even things like lightning have been taken care in those days. So about all these informations are there, and there's a particular order in which each one has to be placed in the stage. Like the musicians or the experienced dancers had to be on the left hand side, and the actual dancer had to be on the right hand side. So Madhavi also enters the stage with her Valadikal, right leg. So even today, when you enter the stage or any auspicious place, you place your Valadikal or your right leg and you go inside, right? So Madhavi also enters like that, and she places herself on the right hand side of the stage where there is a pillar. And it's not a custom, and as per custom, the dancer should not start the performance immediately. First, it should be the experienced dancers who have to start the performance by singing. They pray for goodness to happen, or evil to be removed, and that's called as Varapadal. So all these experienced dancers were called as Thoriya Magalir. The commentator says, they got aged by dancing itself. He does not refer to them as aged women. He says those who got aged by dancing for so many years.
Maturity.
So
mature dancers.
Yes, mature dancers. So they start the performance by their Varapadal, and this is followed by various other various other musics by the various music instruments. Then the dancer starts her performance. So Madhavi starts giving her performance, and again here in all these places, it's not Bharatanatyam or Natyam as we call today. It is Kuthu. So those days, dance was called as Kuthu. So she starts giving her Kuthu items. Basically, she gave Desi Kuthu, or I think another one is Vaduka Kuthu or something, which were basically like classical dance or more of a regional dance kind of things. So the Chola king obviously got very impressed by her performance, and he awards her the Talekol. Apart from that, he gives her a Ilai Poom Kodai. He gives her a garland, which is like, green leaves, and he gives her Ayrathettu Karanji of Pon, which is the custom which has to be given to a debut dancer.
Gold.
So this one I told you, right? This garland which the Chola king gives to Madhavi, this is the garland or this is the mala which is taken by Madhavi's servant to the streets, and she opts to sell it, and she says whoever sells it will get the ownership of Madhavi.
Whoever
That's how
buys
Kovalan
it.
comes in.
Whoever buys
Kovalan
it.
comes in.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
whoever buys it. So that's how Kovalan comes in. He buys the mala and enters Madhavi's house, and then after that, both of them genuinely
And,
started
and,
having a
and
liking
enter
for each other.
Madhavi's life. So here I have to say that Kovalan was already married, and his wife Kannagi was left behind in Puhar. No, not in Puhar. He was left
Puhar,
behind.
Puhar.
Yeah, he was in Puhar. Yes, and so he has come to a bigger city, and he's quite a wealthy merchant. He's not an ordinary poor man. So when he is when I think when the maid of Madhavi comes after the performance, takes this beautiful garland and says, "Who's going to be the highest bidder or something for this?" Kovalan is also in the Silappatikaram. He's a lover of arts, right? So I think perhaps curiosity, maybe, I mean, though it's not written, maybe it was Madhavi's fantastic performance. Already people were talking about it because the markets always are full of talk and gossip. So curiosity must have piqued him, right? Who is this wonderful, dazzling person? So he paid a handsome price, and that's how Kovalan gets to meet Madhavi. That's basically the way, because he buys this amazing garland necklace. So that's how the two meet, and this, according to of course, in the story, they fall deeply in love, and Kovalan temporarily forgets his wife and spends a lot of time with Madhavi, and she genuinely loves him. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So, so you have the description of the dance hall. You've told us about the ground. You've told us about the pillars. You've told us about the specifications of how a Natya Mandapa has to be built, and that her dance was at that point described as Kutu. So it's obvious that with her kind of training, she was also performing sort of different kinds of dances, right? A
Yes,
variety
yes.
of dances. Uh, but in the Indravira, it specifically talks about 11 types of Kutu that she performs, correct?
Yes.
So the Indravira, the festival that celebrates Lord Indra. So can you give us details of that, the 11 types of Kutu that she dances?
The Indravira is basically celebrated in the month of Chittirai in the Pugar city.
Which is April.
Yes, and Madhavi being a very prestigious dancer, even a royal dancer you can call her, because she gets the Talekol award. She gives a performance, and there is a description on what all Kutu items she gave during the Indravira, which are around 11 types of Kutu. And all these Kutu, were actually supposed to have been performed by a god and goddesses. And that's the one which, Madhavi performed at that point of time. So first she performs two Kutu which Lord Shiva had performed. One is the Kodukatti Kutu, which actually says, Lord Shiva clapped his hands and performed that Kutu along with Parvati. Then another one is called as Pandurangam. That is again, performed by Shiva. Then three Kutu of Lord Vishnu, which is Malladal, Alliyam, and Kudakutu. Kudakutu is something like our current Karagatam, which we see
Karagatam.
the folk dance of today. Then she performs the Tudi Kutu or Kudai Kutu, which was performed by Lord Muruga. Then one famous Marakal Adal of Parvati. Even today, people dance right on wooden bars below. Even today, we see the folk dancers dancing on that wooden bars.
Yes,
that's Marakal Adal. That's Marakal Adal. Then she performs a dance item which was performed by Kama, which is called as Pedi Adal, and another one which was performed by Indrani, the wife of Lord Indra. As she dressed as a farmer, she performs the Kadayam. So she performs the Kadayam as well. So in all, and another one I left, one is Pave Kutu. where, Lakshmi, as she's really known for her beauty. So she, with all her beauty, performs this kuthu. That's why the name itself goes as Pavai Kuthu. So she performs all these 11 types of kuthu items. Before these kuthu, she actually gives a performance for Devabani. Even today, before you start a dance item, you basically you have one piece which is actually like a salutation to God, right? So those in those days, it was the Devabani. Devabani means music. Devabani means a music for the lords. So she actually prays, she performs the Devabani for Lord Vishnu, who is the protector, and she performs the Devabani for the Varnabhudas, who are the protectors of the various groups of people. And then she performs Devabani for the moon, for the Chandra. So this is the 11 types of kuthu which Madhavi performs along with the Devabani.
So I just want to tell our audience who may not be familiar with many of the terms that Meenakshi Devaraj just talked about kuthu, which was what was the term used for dance. It was not Natyam or Bharatanatyam or Sadir or any of those kinds of terms that we have been familiar with in the 19th and 20th century. And also that for all these various dances, which are supposed to have been danced originally by the gods, so she must have changed costume for each of them, right? And Madhavi's, in the Silappatikaram, her choice of adornment, her aharya, has been really praised and celebrated. So Meenakshi, tell us about that. Tell us about, the way she dressed and
Yes,
all the beauty.
It's as you said, for all these 11 dances, she did dress herself, whether it was the attire or the ornaments, she did she did dress herself accordingly for the various types of kuthu. And Madhavi was definitely known for her beauty. And even there is a line in Silappadigaram that says she excelled in Adalum, Padalum, Alagum. So, she was expert in all these three. So definitely she knew how to groom herself. And there is
music, dance, and beauty.
Yes.
Music, dance, and beauty.
Music, dance, and beauty. So there is a piece in Kadaladu Kadai which actually, describes on how she groomed herself. She, due to some issues, Kovalan is in tussle with her, and she wants to impress her lover. So she decides to, dress herself well. Before dressing herself, she gets bathed in about, various kind of herbs which are around 5 type of tuvars, 10 type of virais, and 32 type of omaligais. So you can imagine nearly more than 40 plus herbs she uses for her bath itself. So after a bath, she dresses herself, with her. Then she actually conditions her hair with milk and ghee. Then she dresses herself with a very costly, wrapper or sari called as sadar. The material was a very costly material those days. Then she starts dressing up from, top to toe. She starts with her leg. She, like how you decorate your leg with mardani. Even those days they used to use some kurambu to decorate their leg.
Like
so
henna.
She starts with
like mehendi. It was something to stain. To decorate.
Yeah. Then she starts by decorating her toe rings. She puts Pili, Kalali, Magaravai Modram. Then for her legs, she has Ariyagam, Puragam, Nupuram, and Padagam. Then she comes up. She had decorated even her thigh with something called as Virisi Kurunjeri, which was supposed to be like elephant tusk. Then she decorates her, a hip with something called as Virisigai, which consisted about which had around 32 pearl threads of pearl on it. Then she decorates her arms with muttuvalai, kandigai, kandacharam. Then she goes to her hand and she decks her hand with all kind of bangles. conch bangles, Navaratna bangles, Sudagam, a very costly bangle. You would have come across Sudagam in Tirupavai also, right? Sudagame tolvalaye, Andal will be asking, right? So she just decorates it. She just decks herself with all these kind of bangles. Then she definitely, for her finger rings also, she wears Virisigai Modaram and so many other many rings for her hands. And then in her neck she puts Changali, Sarapalli or Savadi, then one Muttu Aram. Then everything is tied together with a hook at the back. From that hook you have, pearl chains which fall on her back. So you can just imagine that, she's entirely decked up with jewels. This is just for her body. Then she goes to her head. Her head, she decorates it with Valamburi Sangu, then Toyyagam, which is the nettichutti which we use. Then the Pullagam, which is, the Vadapalli or Tenpalli, which is in use even today. Then the Seruni, the Devagutti, I don't know what it all was. So much of jewelry. So she knew how to groom herself very well. So there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to also just interrupt here. If you see sculptures and drawings of the women's hairstyles during that time, there wasn't really something called the center parting and the bun. It was all like on to a side, top one side, lots of hair on one side. So there was a lot of asymmetry. Let's put it that way. There was asymmetrical way, and if hair was long and braided, I think that in one of the temples at the Kumbakonam or Gangaikonda Cholapuram, there is a long pinnal and there is like a fruit like an apple, and there's a kili also trying to peck that fruit. So the idea of adornment, I just want to remind people who are not from India that there is no culture in the world that adorns the woman from top to bottom like India. And in the description of how Madhavi dressed and prepared and anointed herself, it was more than a ritual. It was for her a way of life. She was now the celebrated dancer, the favorite of the Chola royalty. And I know that those who came to that position were also considered very lucky. They were considered auspicious. So and later on, on maybe the king's birthday or their children's birthday, that somebody like Madhavi would be invited to either sing or dance, because her presence would be extremely valuable, very valuable, for it to be there. So I just wanted to provide a little context. I also wanted to say that because the Silappatikaram is dated anywhere between 3rd, 4th, 5th century, I think they say about 5th century, there is evidence of a lot of trade from Rome, from Europe already. And even today, Roman coins are being discovered all across the coast in Tamil Nadu. And the Romans were coming to India and they were teaching the kings the art of attack and defense, military skills. And they were taking back the silks, they were taking back peacocks for the rich royalty, they were taking back tigers to fight in the Colosseum. There was a lot of trade. So one writer, Meenakshi, I want to come back to Madhavi. One writer has imagined Madhavi is so special. She's such an important VVVIP that she had Z category security, and her security was Roman guards. Okay, it's not in the Silappatikaram, but because we know of the presence of Roman emissaries at the Pandya court, we know that trade was occurring. We know that there was a lot of back and forth trade. And so I just wanted to say that there is a novelist who has imagined this dazzling dancer, Madhavi, so important in society that she was given Roman guards as Black Cat Commando security. It's not in the Silappatikaram. It's just a leap of imagination. Just a leap of imagination. It's quite possible, right? If she was so celebrated, she would have had very special security. Can you imagine the kind of jewelry? Can you imagine the value of what she was wearing? And quite honestly, after you finish telling me, I'm asking, how could she move? Look at the weight. Look at the weight of the jewelry. How could she even move? So now I want to ask about, let's come back to Madhavi, the woman. Uh, because we have sort of discussed, who she was, her training, her talent, her ability, her success, her achievement, and obviously, maybe all the men were secretly in love with her. Beauty, art, talent. But then she meets Kovalan, and she falls in love. What qualities about Madhavi, the woman, really sort of struck you in the story?
She was a multifaceted personality. Definitely, one thing is because of the training she had. Definitely, she was an expert in all art items. So apart
But
from
as a woman, as a
apart
woman,
from her kutush, there are places which describe about how she had played. There are places which talk about, she writing the Kanalvari poems. So she was literally multifaceted. Definitely, she's known for her beauty as well. But apart from that, there are lines which silently talk about her character. See, she was very dedicated to Kovalan. She was a very dedicated wife to Kovalan, and to that extent that she goes to, even while naming her daughter, she names her as Manimeghale, right? The Manimeghale is actually the Kuladaivam of Kovalan's family. Once Kovalan's ancestors got caught in the sea, and it is the Manimeghale Deivam who comes up and saves them. So literally, Kovalan refers Manimeghale as his Kuladaivam. And Madhavi gave the name of Kovalan's Kuladevam to her daughter. So you know how much attached she had become with his entire family itself. Apart from all that, this line is not there in Silapadigaram, but in one place in Manimegalai, she refers Manimegalai as a daughter of Kannagi. Imagine she's sharing her motherhood literally. So when I read that particular line, she literally went very up. Her image went really very up. So all these together. Definitely, I feel she needs to be celebrated more. She needs to be, only if you start talking or only if you start celebrating her, you will start looking at Silapadigaram with a different perspective or with a different lens, wherein, the portions which describe about Madhavi has so much of information about Kuthu and music. Each line needs to be researched by so many scholars. So much of information is there. So definitely, and definitely she needs to be seen with a different kind of lens, not with the usual one which many people are seeing.
So I just want to recap here for our audience. Manimeghale was also called, considered the goddess of the ocean. So for those merchants who depended on the ships carrying the valuable cargo to reach shores safely, they always prayed to the goddess of the seas, so the ships wouldn't be caught in a storm. And to this day, fishermen still pray to the seas, in all cultures. So Manimeghale was a goddess of the waters, of the ocean waters, and so Madhavi names the daughter she has from Kovalan as, with the same name as the goddess. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So Kovalan leaves Madhavi at some point, returns to his wife Kannagi, and reunites, and Kannagi takes him back, and they move on to Madurai. Now, Madhavi is expecting her daughter, and Kovalan is not aware of this. Kovalan doesn't know that she's expecting. She's not yet been born, right?
Kovalan is aware. So a daughter is born when they were in Pugar itself.
Okay, a daughter is born and is named Manimeghale, and then they have a fight, and then there's a rift, and Kovalan leaves and goes back. And then Madhavi, so the Puhar section sort of ends Madhavi's presence in the epic. We move on, the story moves on with Kovalan. So she writes a letter, doesn't she? She writes a letter, and that letter is brought to Kovalan. So Tell us about that. The emissary, the letter that comes from
She
Manimekale,
writes the
coming
letter
from
on
Madhavi.
Tarampu Elai.
Okay,
Tarampu
on a leaf.
Yes, yes. And she uses the pittigai or the jadi flower to write the letter. And she sends it to, yes, she sends it to through her friend Vasantamalai. But unfortunately, Kovalan refuses to read that letter. And this is the direct appearance of Madhavi, which has been mentioned in the epic. This is the last direct appearance of Madhavi in the epic. Later on, she sends another letter through an elderly person called Kausigan. That happens in the second part of the epic in Madurai. When they're on the way to Madurai, Kausigan brings a letter. And seeing that letter, Kovalan really changes his mind, and he becomes aware all this happened only because of this destiny. That is the second appearance, not appearance, but at least reference to Madhavi. Then later on the third part, when the story happens completely in the Chera country, there is when the Kannagi temple is built, there is one friend of Kannagi who mentions about what happened to Madhavi, how she got converted into a saint, and how she made her daughter also get converted into a saint. So they're just references, not any direct mentions.
So let's get ahead of the story. Just want to say that this story didn't have a happy ending. Madhavi is left, in a sense, abandoned. She now becomes a single parent, a single mother. She's raising her daughter on her own. But let's not forget the main thing. The author of this grand sweeping epic is a prince turned monk. So I don't know what the whole idea, it's lavish. It's a stunning sweep of history and society and culture with great detail. But then ultimately, Madhavi gives up her practice and becomes like what we call a nun, like a monk. And in the next epic, which is also very precious to the Tamils, which is named after her daughter, it's called Manimekale. Manimekale herself, beautiful, and the prince is in love with her. And once again, she just wants to give up all the what we call worldly pleasures of life. That's also written by another monk. So the Buddhist and Jain kind of thought was still very strong in South India, very, very strong. And so we have these kinds of underlying currents of faith and philosophy and abstinence, and what does wealth, what does a life of pleasure kind of give us? So when you talk about the temple for Kannagi, I just want to round it off by saying that I said it didn't have a happy ending. Kovalan is killed by very unfortunate circumstances. His wife Kannagi is upright in fury and goes and challenges the Pandya king and says, you have done great wrong, and I'll prove to you that you've killed the wrong man. And she takes her anklet, so it's the tail of the anklet, and still it's her anklet, and she breaks it, and it has rubies in it. That's how wealthy they were. And the anklet of the queen only has pearls in it. So he knows that he has accused the wrong man of stealing his wife's anklet, and so the king dies, and Kannagi in a fury curses the city of Madurai, tears her breast. It's huge drama. And finally, she goes to what is called Chera country, which is in present-day Kerala, and then she's taken up by Indra to the heavens, and then there's a temple built for her. But I want to come back to why is Madhavi, why don't we celebrate Madhavi? We don't have any woman in any of the epics with the kind of training, the acumen, the intelligence, the talent. It is like a convergence of the constellations. And to just easily dismiss her as the other woman is being unfair to her. And here in Tamil Nadu, we have a vengeful woman in a statue of Kannagi, angry, holding that anklet. And and the statue itself seems to have come with its own accompanying superstitions. For those who have visited Chennai, you may have seen the statue in one place, and you come next, it's moved to another place. And it's not considered to be having positive vibrations, because here was a woman enraged. But why are we not celebrating Madhavi? And she's a dancer's dream. She's a dancer's dream. Can I tell you, Meenakshi, I acted in a Singapore opera about 25 years ago. It was called Kannagi. It was produced by Apsara's Arts, and my guru, my late guru, Neela Satyalingam, was the artistic director. And we presented it for Singapore Fine Arts. I wanted to play Madhavi. But Neela Satyalingam said, no, I wanted to play Kannagi. I said, my God, she's so boring. What am I going to do being just this suffering wife? And so I had to find some way of making her interesting, because Madhavi's character was just so compelling. Yeah. I'm going to turn on the comment section now, and I would like whatever questions you want to ask Meenakshi, because remember, she's a historian, she is a specialist in inscriptions, and yeah, this is the time. So I know that a lot of dancers refer to Madhavi, they refer to the Silappatikaram. Some dancers I know have tried to have their arangetrams replicated, like how Madhavi was in the Silappatikaram. But she remains a dream, isn't it? She remains like some ideal, a woman.
See, for any dancer, if you have to go back and trace the history of Kuthu in Tamil Nadu, it is only the history of Madhavi. You need to only go and refer the lines which describe the story of Madhavi. So she's definitely so high. She needs to be, regarded so high in the society. I don't know why she's missed.
Well, I think as creative women, Meenakshi, and I can talk from my point of view, creative women don't necessarily have to only sort of submit to the narrative of being a wife and a mother. You can be one without the other. I mean, I think motherhood has done more for me than being somebody's wife. But I think a creative person is also restless in the sense of the curiosity. The mind is growing all the time. So I think the idea of she and Kovalan must have really loved one another, and she must have been completely devoted to him. And we have to remind ourselves that she could have had any amazing man. I mean, I'm sure so many people must have been in love with her, right? So I think it's time to recover Madhavi. We have to recover Madhavi. We have to recover from this sad woman whose heart was broken because the man she loved and the man who was the father of her child left her. Today we have so many single mothers, and they should actually take courage. We should be actually using her as a role model, her as an example, and not as somebody like husband leaves you and just sort of, crumble up and give up life and become a monk, But I think that it was in the writer's orbit, to end the story with one woman in an extreme who also sort of wreaked vengeance and then retreated. Another woman who sort of just evaporated, very quietly disappeared. Yeah. So thank you so much, Meenakshi. You brought Madhavi back to us. You brought Madhavi and the possibilities of what a woman with talent, imagination, beauty, ability, and courage can achieve. Even today, if men are listening, a woman with that kind of combination is considered dangerous and has to be suppressed. But for women out there, just think of Madhavi and become unstoppable. Yeah. So thank you so much, Meenakshi. It's been a fabulous session. And
I'm really happy to have this session in the month of Adi, which again celebrates women.
Yeah, women and the goddess, and we are everywhere. So women, raise a special toast to yourselves, and just celebrate the fact that we're all here, that we're in a community, a digital global community. But remember women like Madhavi. She had everything that anybody would want, and she gave her heart to a man whom she loved with all her being. And then she found herself that there was no happily ever after ending, but we have to write a happily ever after ending for her. That she came she came to terms. She was at peace with whatever she decided to do. So be safe, everyone. Thank you, Meenakshi.
Thank you.
And namaskaram, namaste. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Bye.